16 of the Standing Committee on Transport, Infrastructure and Communities. Today's meeting is taking place in a hybrid format pursuant to the standing orders. I would like to make a few comments for the benefit of members. Please wait until I recognize you by name before speaking. For those participating by video conference, click on the microphone icon to activate your mic, and please mute yourself when you are not speaking. For those on Zoom, at the bottom of your screen, you can select the appropriate channel for interpretation, either floor, English, or French. For those in the room, you can use the earpiece and select the desired channel. For members in the room, if you wish to speak, please raise your hand. For members on Zoom, please use the raise hand function. The clerk and I will manage speaking order as best we can, and we appreciate your patience and understanding in this regard. A reminder that all comments should be addressed through the chair. The committee suspended its meeting on Tuesday, December 9th, while debate was ongoing on a motion. Therefore, we are resuming this meeting and the debate on the motion as amended of Xavier Barstow-Duval, moved on Tuesday, November 6, 2025. Colleagues, the speaking list, as we had it at the last meeting, was Mr. Albus, followed by Mr. Muse, and Mr. Lauzon just requested to put his name on the list as well. So, Mr. Albus, with that, before I turn it over to you, sir, I want to make a special announcement. It was a birthday of our good friend and analyst, Alexandre. Happy birthday, sir. Happy birthday. And on that note, sir, it's now a pleasure for me to turn the floor over to you, Mr. Albus.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and félicitations.
Congratulations to our analyst, and happy birthday to you. This morning, it's important to begin with a brief review of the motion.
It has, as amended, is that the Standing Committee on Transportation, Infrastructure and Communities request that the Departments of Transportation, Revenue, Employment, as well as the Prime Minister's Office forward to the committee clerk within 60 days of the adoption of this motion all correspondence, reports, emails, and documents relating to the issue of noncompliance in the trucking industry since January 1st, 2022, and that departments and agencies tasked with producing the documents apply redactions as per legal obligations under the Privacy Act and Access to Information Act, that the committee add additional meetings of 2 hours each as, 3 additional meetings of 2 hours each as part of the study on the changing context for truck drivers in Canada, so that the first meeting can hear testimony from victims of heavy trucks and representatives of Justice for Truck Drivers, the Caledonian Community Road Safety Advocacy Group, otherwise known as CCRASA, and the Joy Smith Foundation. In the second meeting, testimony from the representatives of 6S Trinity Transport, J&R Hall Trucking, Dan Express, Carmen Transportation, Ludwig Transport Limited, the Association des Professionnels de Dépannage du Québec, and Canada Post, and in the third meeting, testimony from representatives of the BC Trucking Association, hand on heart, Ontario Trucking Association, Canadian Council of Motor Transportation Administrators, or otherwise known as CCMTA, and the Alberta Motor Transportation Association. And that immediately following these 3 meetings, the committee, pursuant to Standing Order 108-2, undertake a 5-meeting study on what is needed to support, diversify, and modernize Quebec and Canada's ports, to find new markets to reduce reliance on the United States, that the committee report its findings to the House, and that pursuant to Standing Order 109, the government table a comprehensive response to the report. So I'm really glad that no one called me on relevance for not speaking to the motion, because literally that is the motion on deck. So I just wanted to point out that I am very upset that, unlike Quebec, that there's no mention of BC, because I do think BC has wonderful ports, and I think that this is overlooked. However, I do know that my colleague from Quebec always puts Quebec close to his heart, and so I don't blame him personally for that oversight. If I were from Quebec, I would probably do the same. Now, if you cast our minds back to where I left off, I was saying that moving to a new study before we significantly addressed BC ferries, an issue I believe very contentious still, $1 billion being sent to a publicly owned asset corporation, BC Ferries, that is being used to purchase ships from China for $1 billion. Now, there's also subsequent infrastructure that would be involved because these are hybrid ships that utilize both batteries. And by the way, I'm just letting everyone know, this is actually the exciting part of the job, is where you actually have, this is the first application of a battery/hybrid engine for ships this size. Now, I don't know if that's a good thing or if that's a bad thing, because they haven't been used to scale. So there's some question about whether or not these ferries will function as promised. I know that smaller ferries that BC Ferries has used that have a hybrid engine in the interior of British Columbia, they don't have the charging infrastructure. So the charging infrastructure that that BC Ferries would be purchasing to charge these large vessels, it actually ends up charging its own batteries on diesel, which actually creates more greenhouse gas emissions than would usually have. So a portion of the $1 billion will be going towards Chinese companies to build the infrastructure. And we heard during the unions that they were quite upset that they had no say in BC Ferries. Mr. Chair wouldn't even tell the BC Marine Ferry Workers Union, the Marine and Ferry Workers Union, whether or not there's a made in Canada component to this, and whether or not the infrastructure would be actually built by Canadian workers. So it's not just outsourcing, in my mind, Canadian jobs in steel, aluminum, and shipbuilding. It's actually pushed out to electrical components. And again, this is not going to be Canadian steel most likely to build this infrastructure. And I should point out that the committee received a note, much of it retracted, from BC Hydro, citing large costs to build the infrastructure towards this. We still haven't produced a report on this. Why? Well, because we have not heard from the various ministers to come and talk about this. Now, we could ask Minister McKinnon, to take some time away from the House Leader's function, where he's essentially spending, I would say, probably 90% of his time keeping a minority government on the rails, rather than making sure that our transportation system is efficient. But if we brought him here, Mr. Chair, and I was to ask the question, Minister, on BC Ferries, what do you think about this BC Hydro Connect? What do you think about all the electrical components coming from China and being put in place by Chinese workers? Well, he would just say, hey, it wasn't me. I had nothing to do with it. Totally clean hands. And, for a minister to say that, it's a gift. It's a gift because it is terrible decision making. As I said, Minister Freeland wrote to the provincial minister outlining her concerns about national security, and also wanting to ensure that there was not $1 in capital investment from the federal government would go towards the acquisition of this, Mr. Chair, which I've spoken to many accountants about this kind of thing. That is completely preposterous. If you give money into operations, accountants will say, it pays down the debt. So for anyone to try to conflate that not one federal dollar will go towards the purchase of these things from Transport Canada, that is not true. That is not true. So maybe Mr. McKinnon would not have totally clean hands. Maybe I could press him on that point. But right now, we don't have any ministers coming. We don't have any ministers. So in effect, the minister that had her hands in the muck, and then when things got too hot, decided that she was out, Mr. Chair, maybe she couldn't live with the conflicts.
Mr. Speaker, or Mr. Chair, point of order. I appreciate what Mr. Albus is doing in terms of setting up the argument, but again, there's a couple instances where Mr. Alba seemingly is Kretzkin or Ravine for those in Atlantic Canada who can get inside the minds of people of why they leave politics. So I'd ask him to stay on task, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kellaway, and I appreciate the pre-Christmas promotion to Speaker. But I am a lowly chair.
Yeah, I did
Even
correct
so,
myself.
I do have the ability to ask members to try and stay on topic as much as possible, and I would ask Mr. Albus and all members to do that in this case. Thank you very much, Mr. Kellaway.
I appreciate the intervention. I know that Mr. Lazon loved it when I intervened because it gave a moment to consider. But really, I'm talking about the motion here. How can we move forward with the port study if there's still unanswered questions on BC ferries, Mr. Chair? That is a direct link. And you know, if I end up being more than 3.5 minutes talking about a subject without looping back to the motion, I expect Mr. Lazon to do the courtesy and let me know that. So again, we have a situation here, Mr. Chair, where and I'm not satisfied. I know that the public isn't satisfied. If you were to ask them, do you think that right now we should be giving $1 billion of your tax dollars through an unaccountable bank, through a government that seems to want to be unaccountable for the decision of the Canadian Infrastructure Bank, which is under their direct purview? They fund the bank. If we had the minister here for estimates, we had a filibuster by Liberal members for who knows how long. Raising all sorts of interesting questions. We would have been able to maybe ask him those questions, or perhaps summon, my fellow colleague from British Columbia, the Minister Gregor Robertson. But that is to an aside. That Liberal filibuster seems to have ended, and right now, before proceeding on anything further, I think it's important that Conservatives get their points about why BC Ferries is still an ongoing issue that has not been addressed. And I will point by not just the members of the government, but by members of this committee. I have not heard any Liberals speak to say, we want to hear more. Now, I did ask the parliamentary secretary, or the parliamentary secretary assured me that Chrystia Freeland, when she comes, she would answer every single one of my questions. And it may not make me happy, but he said you would be satisfied. And, Mr. Chair, being happy but not satisfied, that is never the position of the opposition. But getting back to the motion, because it is approximately 3.5 minutes, to move to move to 5 meetings on the modernizing Quebec and Canada's ports to find new markets to reduce reliance on the United States, it's my understanding that there have been 3 or so reports on ports by this committee in previous parliaments where the government, was given recommendations. Now, I'm not going to speak to those reports. I wasn't there. All I'm simply going to say, Mr. Chair, is that the fact is we have not given recommendations to the government for them to ignore like they have on the previous 3 port studies that this committee has done. So I think we do the public a disservice. I think we do ourselves a disservice if we are not making recommendations on BC Ferries before proceeding to another port study that will be ignored largely by the government. And why do we know that, Mr. Chair? Well, this committee worked so hard just before we rose for the session. I know Mr. Barcelo Duval was working on overtime. I know our members were working overtime on C5. And the thing is, the committee ended up passing that legislation with many accountability checks. So to my friend for the block, congratulations. A number of his amendments were included. Some were supported by us, many, I believe, and I think it's made for better legislation. But we gave that to the ministers who said this was necessary for the good of the country to speed up projects. Right? And the Major Projects Office, Mr. Chair, like those recommendations that this committee made on previous port studies, none of them have been designated under C5 as under the national interest. So it seems to me that we get into such a rush on what the government thinks is important to it, and it doesn't even act on it. So before going into another study on Canada's ports, which I'd be happy to talk about ports, Prince Rupert, for example. I know I have some concerns. That particular port is currently being sued by a local First Nations for an exclusivity deal. Maybe at some point we may want to talk about whether or not ports should be able to simply make those deals and not reveal that when they are supposed to be doing Indigenous consultation. And that happened under this government's watch. That 100% happened. And that lawsuit now, this First Nations is having it. But, I'm sure the government will try to ignore that as well. So BC Ferries is still very, very much important to me, Mr. Chair. But there are other issues that I think that could be addressed before we go to it. And let me just quickly point out some other issues. So, for example, if you're flying in Western Canada on one of our airlines, sometimes through no fault of the staff or the pilots, suddenly you will find out, Mr. Chair, that you are either grounded or that you have to circle around because there are massive shortages with NAVCAN. Now, Tim Perry, who's the Airline Pilots Association president, has publicly said that this is a huge concern, and it is hurting both Canada's international reputation, because if someone cannot make their connection in places like YVR, that's a huge problem. I do know that these labor shortages have even affected the Kelowna riding. Not my riding, but I'm sure many constituents in my riding have been affected by these labor shortages that NAVCAN. And unfortunately, it doesn't seem to be that they're accountable to anyone. They're very nice people. They came and talked to me, and they, gave assurances that everything is well in hand. But if you are in Winnipeg, and I know there are members from Winnipeg in the Liberal Party. The reason why I know that there's members of Parliament from the Liberal Party is because, like Mr. Lauzon is on this committee, Mr. Lamoureux is in the House of Commons, where he is the voice and the face of the new Liberal government.
It's true.
And he talks endlessly. In fact, I'm intrigued that he holds many of his constituency meetings at the local McDonald's. Yeah, and I bet you he's probably heard about this issue, because Winnipeg is one of those affected airports, in addition to Vancouver, I believe also Calgary. And Calgary is one of those airports, and quite honestly, I just have to say that since I think it's 2021, 2022, there has been a fleet modernization, and now we've seen where both Air Canada, WestJet, and others have modernized their fleet, and that has changed the course. So we actually have members of Parliament sometimes from Alberta and Saskatchewan will actually have to fly to either Calgary or to Vancouver, just so then they can fly to Ottawa because of connections. So, when we have NAVCAN, where our international reputation is causing issues, where we have interested members of Parliament for their constituents and pilots, I wouldn't believe how many members of Parliament have contacted my office that have pilots that have said this is a major issue. And yet, we hear nothing from the Liberal side on this. And I do think that we need to bring them in. I think we need to ask questions of NAV Canada with how they're going to rectify this shortages. But I also do know that CBSA often will have issues, Mr. Chair, where their computers are out. I've had people will tweet at me that they're stuck in line with pictures just because I'm the opposition shadow minister for transportation, asking me what I'm going to do about it. Well, I haven't had the chance to get the mic and say that these are important issues. And really, I wanted to finish the study on Drivers Inc. So I'm very supportive of having the changes that Mr. Duval has, because Barcelo Duval had asked for it, because originally I was the one proposing 3 meetings. So to see 3 meetings in this motion, Mr. Chair, specifically dealing with the changing context for truck drivers in Canada, this is absolute excellence. C'est important pour comprendre bien.
It's extremely important to properly understand different perspectives. It's fundamental for the committee's work. Potentially, our committee will hear we will hear from victims directly. We will hear their voices. We will hear them on their terms. It's important to give these people time and to hear their important perspectives. It will be important to raise these issues. And this is also very important to me.
For the different associations, for example, I'm just going to give a quick shout out to one of the groups that is actually in this, the Caledon Community Road Safety Advocacy Group, because I know that they're watching these proceedings. I know that they have been keen to come to here. I've seen some of the work that they've done on their website and some of the very harrowing tales they have of the changing landscape of truck driving in Canada. And I'm very supportive of that particular motion. But the challenge we have here, Mr. Chair, is the way that this motion is currently constructed. We can't support this at this time without some major changes. And again, I would start with the major changes needing to be BC Ferries. I can't move forward without some sense of closure. I need closure, Mr. Chair. And unfortunately, the government has not been able to give that, because I don't feel that they've been accountable, and I don't think that, I still believe that the loan should be canceled, and that we should be looking to see how we can build these ships here in Canada, rather than allowing them to go to a hybrid shipyard in China, supporting their industry, their war machine, because it's all fundamental. It's all one thing to them. Here in Canada, we have the very successful national shipbuilding strategy. I know the government celebrated that, said about all the wonderful things it does for the economy. Places like Halifax, Irving Shipyards has benefited very much, as has Seaspan, a great company that is producing fantastic Coast Guard vessels, the science vessels, as well as icebreakers, that use some Canadian steel, but not all. Much of the steel, Mr. Chair, I'm not sure if you're aware about this, for icebreakers actually comes from Finland, which Davie Shipyard is a part owner of. And one of the things, that I think that we should have a real conversation, if we're going to do Made in Canada, we should try and see about whether or not we can import some of that specialty here in Canada. Because last I checked, Mr. Chair, we have some excellent steel companies. And these are all issues that I'm afraid right now the Government of Canada is not addressing. Now, we could consider this. We could consider, as I said, supporting the elements that Mr. Duval has obviously negotiated with the government members, because essentially it seems to be this motion that was amended originated from the Liberal Party. I guess if Mr. Greaves was present, I could actually say it appears that there is a coalition between the Liberals and the Bloc. But actually, as Mr. Lauzon said earlier, that there was obviously a coalition between the Conservatives and the Bloc. But that would be a silly thing to say, because ultimately, the Bloc has their ideas about what is good for their province, and Conservatives have our own ideas, and sometimes the two, travel the same way. And obviously, sometimes the Liberal Party seems to want to support and is supported by the Bloc, at least in the current way that this motion was amended. So I think it's a very silly thing for anyone to say, and I know that Mr. Greaves tried to make a point of this on Twitter, that it was really, you wouldn't believe this, Mr. Chair. He actually did a report to his constituents. Lovely background, because Victoria is beautiful. The coastline is very beautiful.
Point of
he
order,
was
Mr.
saying-
Chair. It's been more than three
Just give
minutes
me
and a
1
half
second,
before
Mr.
it came
Elvis.
back to the main motion. So maybe you could talk about the main motion. He's now talking about BC Ferries since about 8-9 minutes. So the subject here is the main motion.
Merci
Here's
beaucoup,
you.
Monsieur Lauzon. Mr. Albus, and I guess this is just a reminder to all members to try and bring it back as much as possible. I think we have a 3.5-minute rule that is unofficial, but I think we've used it in the past.
Oh, no,
and I think
pros.
we should include that here.
Yeah,
so, Mr. Albus,
pros
the
will
floor is yours,
refer
my
to
good
the
man.
motion every 3.5 minutes. And again, Mr. Lauzon was saying, in relation to the study of Drivers Inc. and the motion, which now includes many of the measures, including now the ports. So I'm speaking to the motion. He alleged that there was a coalition, and I'm just clearing the air so that people that may have been confused by that statement from Mr. Lauzon can know that I think it was just political rhetoric. And what was also political rhetoric, though, was Will Greaves did a little report to his constituents saying that it was Conservatives that were filibustering and stopping the meeting. Well, Mr. Chair, he actually posted Mr. Lauzon's statement that it was a coalition between Conservatives and the Bloc. And so I just think it's really important, because had Mr. Greaves been here, maybe he would address this directly. Maybe he would admit I was wrong, Mr. Lauzon was wrong. Maybe he might want to speak about pipelines and MOUs and things like that, as my colleague, Mr. Lawrence, has asked him to earlier. But getting back to the report that is proposed here, I do think it's very interesting that the Bloc has asked for that the Prime Minister of Canada, his office, to be added to the list of a production order. Why is that interesting? Is because TVA Nouvelle has done a story in the past 3 days outlining that the Prime Minister has been seen multiple times with a gentleman, and obviously that has some connection to the issue that has absorbed so much press time in Quebec. And so I find it really interesting that the government has welcomed that. So I will give the government a little bit of credit that they are trying to open up the doors of the Prime Minister's office in this motion. That's a very interesting thing, and hopefully that was done with the coordination of the Prime Minister's office, because I wouldn't want Mr. Kellaway to lose his job as Parliamentary Secretary. Apparently, if you don't consult with the Prime Minister's office on things like agreements with the Bloc on
Point of order,
C9.
Mr. Chair. I just very quickly.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for your empathy, sir. Thank you. I
It's
appreciate
not a
it.
point
It's
of
not a point of order, but it's just a
I will
moment.
say the sentiment, particularly
The
as we lead up to
sentiment
the
is just, I
holidays,
wanted that on the
is-
record. I appreciate that, sir.
Yeah.
It's very heartwarming as we lead up
Yeah.
to the holidays. Thank you, Mr. Kellaway. I'll turn the floor back over to you,
No,
Mr. Albus.
and the reason why I connected directly is because this motion obviously had some coordination, and so in order to keep your parliamentary secretary, because those parliamentary secretaries are actually the decision of the Prime Minister, it's not the decision of the minister responsible. But we've seen where it's been known that somehow the agreement with the Bloc on C9 has not been that's been where the Prime Minister's office said publicly in a news story that they weren't consulted. So I certainly hope that's the case, because Mr. Kellaway brings so much to this committee when he's allowed to talk. Now, Mr. Chair, there's so much that I want to say in regards to this motion. I think that it is, the Drivers Inc. part has been improved, so Conservatives certainly can support that end of it. But going to a port study, as I've said, considering how many reports that this committee has done, you know, we want to see the Drivers Inc. study go forward. We have been listening and listening and listening to Mr. Lauzon and raising points of order on relevance and repetition, you know, so that we could get to the actual main motion. So I understand how members could be frustrated, even with my discussion here thus far, which I would not say has been lengthy. Now, it may feel that to some members, Mr. Chair, but if we actually measured my time compared to Mr. Lauzon's time to make his points, I would say that I'm just but a speck like a piece of sand on that ocean that Mr. Greaves did his beautiful video from. So, in order, I'm almost at tears, Mr. Chair, because I miss Mr. Greaves. I haven't heard him for so long. So, what I would suggest, Mr. Chair, in order for us to kind of move forward, we need to see some substantive changes to this particular motion as it currently stands. So I formally move an amendment, and the amendment would would add to the front end of the motion, the motion that's before us and around. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read it out with entirely from the beginning to the end. I believe that our team has sent the clerk a translated copy so that can be circulated, and so perhaps everyone can read along. This is one amendment to the entire motion. We are not sending 5 documents, as was done last time, which created much controversy. I'm glad to hear you say that, Mr. Chair. In fact, if you were to say that publicly, that it was much controversy, I'd appreciate that. But here we go. 1, that the analysts prepare a report for the committee on the study of BC ferries, and that the committee review the reports of BC ferries and the changing landscape of truck driving in Canada once they are prepared by the analysts. 2, in relation to the committee's ongoing study on the financing by the Canada Infrastructure Bank of new vessels for British Columbia ferries, pursuant to paragraph 108(1)(a), of the standing orders, an order is issued to Seaspan ULC to produce the report prepared by Shiroka Consulting at the request of Seaspan ULC regarding national shipbuilding capacity in Canada, all correspondence between Seaspan ULC and BC Columbia Ferry Services Incorporated concerning or related to the acquisition of vessels. 3, given that the Minister of Public Safety and the former, they say their names here, I guess I could say it right now, Gary Anandasangiri, and the former Minister of Transport, Chrystia Freeland, did not appear before the committee as part of the ongoing study on the financing by the Canadian Infrastructure Bank of new vessels for British Columbia ferries. The committee report their absence to the House. Now we'll go back to the original motion, because I'm just going to read it here. That the Standing Committee on Transportation, Infrastructure and Communities requests that the Departments of Transportation, Revenue and Employment, as well as the Prime Minister's Office, forward to the committee clerk within 60 days of adoption of this motion all correspondence, reports, emails, and documents relating to the issue of non-compliance in the trucking industry since January 1st, 2022, and the departments and agencies tasked with producing the documents apply redactions as per legal obligations under the Privacy Act and Access to Information Act. That the committee add 3 additional meetings of 2 hours each as part of the study on the changing context for truck drivers in Canada, so that the first meeting can hear testimony from victims of heavy trucks and representatives for justices for truck drivers, the Caledon, Community Road Safety Advocacy Group, CCRASA, in case you're wondering. and the Joyce Smith Foundation. In the second meeting, testimony from representatives of 6S Trinity Transport, J&R Hall Trucking, Dan Express, Carmen Transportation, Ludwig Transport Limited, the Association des Professionnels de Dépannage du Québec, and Canada Post. And in the third meeting, testimony from the representatives of BC Trucking Association, Ontario Trucking Association, Canadian Council of Motor Transportation Administrators, CCMTA, and the Alberta Motor Transportation Association. And a new addition, Mr. Chair, number 5. Given the significant and persistent problems faced by Via Rail passengers, including prolonged delays, community needs, and customer service issues, pursuant to Standing Order 1082, the committee devote 2 meetings to the matter, and that the committee invite the President and CEO of Via Rail, representatives of CN, and the Minister of Transport to testify as part of the study, and the committee report its findings and recommendations to the House. And 6, just as was written, that immediately following these meetings on the committee, pursuant to Standing Order 1082, undertake a 5-meeting study on what is needed to support, diversify, and modernize Quebec and Canada's ports, to find new markets, to reduce reliance on the United States, that the committee report its findings to the House, and pursuant to Standing Order 109, the government table a comprehensive response to that report. And number 7, given that significant staffing shortages and operational challenges continuously affect NAV Canada, and kiosk failures and staff shortages are affecting the CBSA, negatively impacting Canadian airports, airlines, and air passengers. And in October, 3 Canadian airports were victims of an alarming cyber attack that hacked flight information system and public announcement systems. Pursuant to Standing Order 1082, the committee undertake a study of at least 3 meetings on the operational and security challenges facing Canadian airports and gaps in federal safety and security regulations that affect airline pilots and airport firefighters, and that the following witnesses be invited to appear before the committee: the Minister of Transport for at least 2 hours, separately from the Minister of Public Safety; the Minister of Public Safety for at least 2 hours, separately from the Minister of Transport; the President and CEO of NAV Canada, as well as other competent NAV Canada officials; and the President of the CBSA, as well as other competent CBSA officials, representatives from Montreal International Airport, fine airport, representatives from the Vancouver International Airport, representatives from Winnipeg Richardson International Airport, representatives from Kelowna International Airport, representatives from the Airline Pilots Association, representatives from the IAFF, and that the committee present its findings and recommendations to the House. 8, regarding the committee's schedule. You're going to be excited about this one. It shall proceed with its work in the following order of priority, with the understanding that the chair may deviate from this schedule provided there is consensus from all parties. A, additional meetings on the study entitled The Changing Landscape of Truck Driving in Canada. B, the study on Via Rail. C, the study on the ports of Quebec and Canada. And D, study on the state of NAV Canada and CBSA and other affiliated issues with airports. So, Mr. Chair, I believe that that has been sent to the clerk. I would like to be put on the list to speak to the motion, unless, of course, everyone just is happy with this and we just end today on a positive note that everyone can look forward to the new year together. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Albus. Colleagues, given the length and the complexity of the amendments put forward by Mr. Albus, I'm going to suspend for a couple minutes to make sure that we can get that circulated and we can all understand what we're looking at. The meeting is suspended to the call of the chair. And I believe, Mr. Albus, you had your name on the list, unless you wanted to pass it over to somebody else to comment on it. Otherwise, the floor is yours, my good man.
Well, I think it would be helpful, Mr. Chair, if we heard from the other side where, where we're going to go on this. And so I would just simply ask you to take me and drop me down the list. Okay.
Duly noted. I'll turn the floor to Mr. Lauzon.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Chair. Very well. For the motion, we would like to move one change only, and that would be in the third paragraph. We'd like to replace at the end that the committee mentioned their absence to the House to reissue the invitation to the ministers. The committee reissue an invitation to appear. That's the right wording, that the committee would reissue an invitation to appear, rather than the committee report their absence to the House. We have no other changes to request. We would like to accept it as it is, based on what my colleague, Mr. Albus, proposed.
Barcelo Duval, à vous la parole.
Mr. Barcelo Duval. Thank you, Chair. I would like to see an addition. I have to find the right item because there's so many items. I think it's number 5. There's a list of witnesses. If I'm not mistaken, there's a request for Villarreal, the representatives of CN, and the Minister of Transport for the 2 meetings. I would like to add a witness. That would be the Coalition for Return of Passengers Train Service in the Gaspé, la Coalition de Retour de Train Service en Gaspésie.
Mr. Lauzon, did you want to respond? Est-ce que vous voulez répondre à ce que M. Barcelo Duval vient juste de partager?
Did you want to respond to what Mr. Barcelo Duval has just shared, the change that he has proposed? We've discussed this. This organization is highly involved in the matter, and we are in agreement. Any other comments, questions? Mr. Albus.
I just would like to separate the 2 motions because I think they're 2 very different propositions. Because certainly we support Xavier Barcelo Duval's very sincere request to have that named. I can totally understand that. So I think that would be considered a unanimous consensus for that to proceed. But I would like to speak directly to the motion made by the amendment made by Mr. Lauzon. Should I do that now, or what would you like to do?
Just let me confer with the clerk if you could, Mr. Albus. Just going to make sure that we're following all the right steps here.
Yeah, to
add the witness.
to add the witnesses. That's it.
Yes. And then I'm going to turn it over to.
Yeah. So Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I ask the unanimous consent to add the request of the organizations that Barcelo Duval just tell us to add to my motion,
Do I have
to my
unanimous consent?
amendment.
Just add to the main amendment. No. Just add to the sub-amendment.
Add to the
The
sub-amendment.
sub-amendment.
No, we don't agree to that. We should have a UC just on this, and it will just instantly change the motion, and then we can talk, or it'll instantly change my amendment. I'd like to debate yours, and I don't want the two tied up.
Okay, so we have a request by Mr. Albus that it is moved onto the amendment, the amendment itself?
Yes.
Not the sub-amendment. Do I have unanimous consent for that, colleagues?
Yes.
Okay, so agreed. And now we will debate the sub-amendment that was put forward by Mr. Lauzon. Correct? Okay. For that, Mr. Albus, I'll turn the floor over to you, sir.
Thank you. Now, I'm just going to say this because I think some people would say I'm capitalizing on the committee's time too much. We have had months where an invitation has been made multiple times by the clerk to invite former Minister Freeland and to invite the Minister of Public Safety to come about BC Ferries. They have not done that. That is a decision of those responsible to not come. So if we do this, what the sub-amendment that Mr. Lauzon has made is, in essence, we're directing the analyst to begin drafting a report while we're still have an open floor on the testimony. To me, that is inconsistent and incoherent. So I understand that Mr. Lauzon wants to be as courteous to his colleagues as possible. I understand that because that's what a good colleague will try to do, is to try and invite and to give them another opportunity. But they have declined multiple times, and it's been, we're at the tail end of this year, and we were dealing with this issue as early as August. So I would just say that these ministers and former minister have made their bed, and they can sleep in them now. So I think we just need to move on from BC Ferries in the way that this motion, this amendment already quantifies.
Thank you very much, Mr. Albus. Mr. Kellaway.
Yes. The bed analogy aside, Mr. Chair, I think that, for example, Minister Freeland was here, I believe, in July. She was invited once, not multiple times.
BC Ferries.
BC Ferries, thank you. And so I think we need to be clear on the facts. I think that when we look at where we are, we've had quite a ride in this past session in terms of this committee. And whether it is the trucking study that we've done, that again, I want to thank the Xavier for putting it forward. I truly do. And now with the amendments that we've put forward in the speech by Mr. Albus, I think there's a lot of good in that intervention by Minister Albus. I think we're at a point now where if we look at Minister Freeland once again, there was one invite. I think we invite again, and then see where we are after that. But I think we're on a very good footing of getting something really accomplished here today. And I think it's the art of discussion, collaboration, and compromise over a period of time. But my hope is that we can accept this, move it forward, because now we have multiple tentacles to this, which is not a bad thing in terms of the trucking study, via rail, ports. Ports is important to me. I think it's important to all of us. I understand that it's been studied before, but now, if you think about a year ago, where we were and where we are now, the world has changed, and where we are going as a country is definitely changing in terms of economic development, in terms of a whole host of things. So my hope is that we can move forward with this change. It is in good faith that the change has been made, because there hasn't been multiple invites sent to the ministers. Let's get the ministers here. Let's invite them, and let's move forward on something that's very important to Quebecers, Canadians from coast to coast to coast. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Callaway. I'll turn it over to Mr. Lawrence. Before then, though, I think Minister Freeland and Minister Gregor appeared on August 1st, specifically on BC ferries. So I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Lawrence.
Thank you. There have been multiple requests. The specifics of each we can sort of bicker about, but there have been multiple requests. At the end of the day, more than interesting to me than the particular language is getting the ministers here. It's one thing to invite. I've in my 6 years often seen many invitations to Liberal ministers gone without them actually appearing. But the one thing I will give credit where credit is due is every time a parliamentary secretary has committed to me that the minister will be there, they have shown up. And so it would go a long way if Mr. Callaway would vouch for his minister, saying that this isn't just an invitation, I will actually get them here. Like, these aren't people in far-off lands. These are people who have offices next to us, who Mr. Callaway, I would assume, would talk to as Parliamentary Secretary for Transportation, would speak to Mr. McKinnon hopefully daily. And if he says Mr. McKinnon can be here, I will take him at his word.
Mr. Albus?
Can I just have you work with the clerk and clarify, because we did invite former Minister Freeland after she resigned, because there was a number of questions about her testimony that were blatantly contradicted in the documents that we received in regards to BC ferries. And it's my understanding that the clerk, once he was asked by the committee to invite both the Minister of Public Safety and the former minister, would have done that more than one time. So I find so I would like the clerk just to clarify whether or not entreaties were made on more than one occasion since we asked and invited her to come in as the former minister.
Did you want me to suspend while you look? So, colleagues, we'll just suspend for a minute or two while he looks that up, and we'll reconvene after we get that information. The meeting is suspended to the call of the chair. It shouldn't be too long, colleagues. Colleagues, the clerk was able to do some research while we were suspended and found the information to show that Ms. Freeland, Minister Freeland, was invited. September 18th, following her appearance on August 1st, and she was unfortunately unable to attend. So that clears things up for committee members. Mr. Albus, the floor is yours.
Unable or unwilling?
I believe the wording was unavailable.
Okay. Well, as far as I've seen, we made that in good faith. It was followed up, and I'd like to move on with the report. I'd like to give our analysts some closure. So, and I'd like to give all of us some closure. So, I don't agree with the sub amendment by Mr. Lauzon, although I understand why he's doing it. It's a courteous thing to try to do, but I think at some point we just have to say, let's move on.
Thank you, Mr. Albus. I don't know if we're going to have support for this, but we'll go to a vote. There's nobody else in the speakers list. Christmas miracle.
The vote is on the sub-amendment of Monsieur Lauzon. So I have Mr. Kellaway,
Yes.
Monsieur Lauzon,
Oui.
Ms. Wien,
Yes.
Monsieur Saint-Pierre,
Oui.
Mr. Albus,
No.
Mr. Lawrence,
No.
Ms. Cody,
No.
Mr. Muse,
No.
Mr. Barsalou-Duval.
Oui.
It is yeas pour 5-5, nays contre 4-4.
So now we'll go to discussion on the sub amended. So, colleagues, now the sub amendment passed. We'll go to the discussion on the amendment, and with that, I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Albus.
Yeah, I would just hope that the clerk would invite both the Minister of Public Safety and the former Minister of Transport to come to committee. And it's really important for the committee in terms of the analyst knowing what they can, because they may have material testimony that will change the nature of the report. So I do hope that since Mr. Lauzon has offered the courtesy and since the Bloc has supported that courtesy, that this committee would immediately ask them that they would be pressed to immediately pick a date and to be as early as afforded under this motion, so that we can give the analysts the time that they need so that they can make room. And if the answer is no, that is reported back to us at the earliest opportunity, because I do believe that ministers have a duty to be accountable. And at that point, I would then discuss reporting it to the House, their failure to attend. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Albus. Mr. Barsalou-Duval.
Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Chair. It's not about the motion per se, but I would like to point out that I didn't see anybody else who had a hand up. If we were to approve the motion, should this happen, I have another motion that I would like to table. So I would invite you not to suspend the meeting or to end the meeting before I have the opportunity to table the motion that I would like to introduce.
Mr. Barsalou-Duval.
Thank you, Mr. Barsalou-Duval. No other questions or comments?
As amended. Recorded division, please.
Mr. Kellaway,
Oui.
Monsieur Lauzon,
Oui.
Ms. Wien,
Yes.
Mr. Saint-Pierre,
Oui.
Mr. Albus,
Yes.
Mr. Lawrence,
Oui.
Ms. Cody, Mr. Muse,
Yes.
Monsieur Barsalou-Duval.
Oui.
9-9.
The amendment as amended passes. And now I'll turn the floor over to you, Mr. Albus.
I'm going to print up this recorded division and put it up in my office for posterity.
Thank you very much, Mr. Albus. Colleagues, we are now in discussion on the motion as amended. No takers? Okay.
Est-ce que c'est le bon moment pour apporter la motion, Monsieur le Président?
Is this the right time to table my motion? Just a moment.
As amended, colleagues. Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Kellaway,
Mr. Chair, can you just clarify what the motion was again?
Would you like us, we can read it all out if you'd like.
No, no,
Mr.
no, no.
Ellis.
Just didn't Monsieur Barcelou-Duval have a?
He has a separate motion, sir. We're just, we're dispensing of the motion as amended.
Okay, okay. Thank you very much. I just wanted to make sure we didn't miss him because
We did not.
I hate when members get missed.
I fully understand, Mr. Albus. I will make sure that Mr. Barcelou-Duval has the floor following this vote. So, Mr. Clerk, I'll turn it over to you for reported division, sir.
Mr. Kellaway,
Yes.
Monsieur Lauzon,
Yes.
Ms. Wien,
Yes.
Mr. St. Pierre,
Oui.
Mr. Albus,
Yes.
Mr. Lawrence,
Oui.
Ms. Cody,
Yes.
Mr. Muse,
Yes.
Monsieur Barcelou-Duval.
Oui.
Yes pour 9-9.
The motion as amended carries. Good job, colleagues. Unanimously, I will point out, is a.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
Good job, team. That was some good work behind the scenes to get that done, and I want to thank all members for their diligence in achieving that. I'll turn it over to Mr. Barcelou-Duval. Mr. Barcelou-Duval, vous avez une autre motion que vous voulez apporter?
Oui, merci, Monsieur le Président.
Yes, thank you, Chair. My motion involves the fact that this committee had voted such that all groups coming to testify in the study, such as the trucking study, provide the committee the list of their members. And unfortunately, until now, all the associations who've testified before us have provided their membership list, with the exception of one, CTOA, the Canadian Truck Operators Association. So this motion would repeat our wish to receive the list of members of that association. So I would like to read the motion that the Standing Commission Committee of Transportation give the Canadian Transport, the CTOA, the opportunity to demonstrate good faith by providing within 15 days passing the motion a complete list, an up-to-date list of their members, as have done all the other organizations, and be able to testify before committee about the study and changing developments with the trucking industry in Canada study. If people would wish to address the motion, I would perhaps be interested in commenting on it. So I'd like to take this opportunity to say that I would be interested in being one of the people who have a turn to speak if people wish to address the motion. But if everybody wishes to pass it as is, then I won't need to request the floor. Thank you, Mr. Barcelou-Duval.
For a couple of minutes, it sounds straightforward, but I think there's a couple things we need to discuss. So I'll suspend for a couple of minutes as we distribute that, and we will reconvene at the call of the chair. The meeting is suspended.
I just wanted just to make a brief mention that given the rationale that has been given, that some people are feeling not comfortable sharing their information with, and it could be there's just a wariness about sharing personal information with a parliamentary versus a governmental source. But that is a real thing. So conservatives believe that we should judge by the testimony and the merits that they bring to the conversation. And regardless of whether the list is verified with personal information, we don't think that is germane to the situation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Albus. Colleagues, we've all received the motion. Yes? No other further debate? Oh, Mr. Lauzon.
Je viens de la lire encore.
Well, I've just reread the motion. I think that we had agreed that we wanted to recommend that the organization submit the documents, but now I've reread it twice, and what it says in French at least, and the interpreter does not have either version, is that with transparency and good faith, to transmit to the committee, to convey to the committee, is there an obligation to produce the documents within 2 weeks? I had understood that we wanted to give them the choice. We wanted to let the organization choose whether or not to submit or the guests, those invited, to provide an updated list of these representatives and members. But it's not what the motion actually says, Chair. Mr. Lozo, I saw Mr. Barcelou-Duval's hand up. Thank you, Chair. What I just read to the committee was that the committee order the organization to submit the members list. What was given to the clerk is that the committee request. A request is not as strong as an order. I had understood that compromise would be acceptable to the committee. I must advise everybody around this table that I would have preferred order, because that term gives us much more power and assurance, but I do want to work with everybody. I'd also like to add that should this group not comply with the request of this committee, if we were to vote it, it is also my intention to introduce a motion to report this to the House in the future, because I find this an unacceptable affront to the members of the committee that one organization alone could decide not to submit its membership list, and that only one organization, and we've seen the ramifications, which are disturbing and troubling, and such an organization would not show necessary transparency. When we have an organization, like it or not, that's defending a model which seems to be unacceptable to nearly all witnesses that we have received here in committee, the organization's spokespeople, the members don't even dare speak on their own behalf. Those who've come to committee to speak on behalf of this organization, and all those who just refer to this organization in the public spaces and the media, are never members who are active. They're not active members of the organization. I have great doubts as to the legitimacy of such an organization. So I would have a lot of additional things to say. What I hope is that we will be able to achieve a reasonable compromise. But if members have anything else to say on the subject, I am prepared to say more as well. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Barcelou-Duval. I have Mr. Lauzon. Mr. Lauzon, go ahead. Thank you. I understand my colleague's explanations. However, when in this notice of motion it says we would like the Canada Truck Operators Association show transparency and good faith, I have no problem with that. By conveying to the committee or providing to the committee, we could simply say recommending to the organization that they submit to the committee a list within 15 days. We've already made the request, and they provided an answer to the committee. Maybe not the answer that we want. I would be prepared to invite them back. I'd be prepared to say that to show transparency and good faith. But based on the explanations that you have provided to me, that's enlightened me to a certain extent. And this is essentially what we'd asked for, and they just didn't submit the list. So maybe we should simply request it again. Maybe then we would get it this time. Maybe we'd get an answer this time. I would be in agreement with proceeding this way. In other words, rereading and rereading. And your explanations, I think your explanations have been appropriate. I would agree. I would have to discuss this with my colleagues, but I would agree to move ahead with this. Thank you, Mr. Lauzon.
To a vote on the motion as put forward by Mr. Barcelou Duval. Mr. Clerk, record division, please.
Mr. Kellaway.
Yes.
Mr. Lauzon.
Oui.
Ms. Wien.
Yes.
Mr. St. Pierre. Mr. Albus.
Abstain.
Mr. Lawrence.
Abstain.
Ms. Cody.
Abstain.
Mr. Muse.
Abstain.
Monsieur Barcelou Duval. Yeas pour 5-5.
The motion carries. And with that, colleagues, I want to mention three quick things, if I may. The first is I would like to highlight the birthday of Miss Wien's mother, who's turning 75. So if we could do that. Happy birthday to you, Kim, on behalf of all members of our committee. And secondly, in addition to Alexandre's birthday yesterday, his son Wallace is turning 8 tomorrow. So happy birthday to you, Wallace. And colleagues, I just want to say thank you for your hard work over this past session. It was a lot of hard work that we did. We got to a good place at the end, and that's what counts. So I want to thank you for that. I want to say I look forward to working with you in the new year. And finally, I want to say for those of you celebrating, Happy Hanukkah. And for those of you celebrating as well, Merry Christmas. I wish you all the best in the new year. With that, the meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.